minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Minister, and to the officials. Minister, we learned at the public inquiry on foreign interference that your cabinet colleague Bill Blair, while he served in your current role as Minister of Public Safety, sat on a CSIS warrant for 54 days. National security officials testified at the inquiry that such a warrant is typically signed off by the minister in only a handful of days. And suspiciously, the target of the warrant was none other than a former Ontario Liberal cabinet minister and key organizer and fundraiser for Justin Trudeau in the GTA. So why did it take 54 days to sign the warrant?
Mr. Chair, through you, Mr. Cooper, that's an interesting question. I was asked a similar question at the public inquiry. I was not the Minister of Public Safety. I have not seen that warrant. I can't speak to the circumstances around that warrant at all. And in fact, I was told by CSIS, and the director is here, that I'm not even allowed to discuss the existence of a particular warrant, although that one, as you know, is already in the public domain. So I'm not in a position to address any of the circumstances around that particular warrant. I wasn't involved at all.
Minister, will you launch a departmental review into what happened as far as this 54-day delay?
I look forward to hearing Justice Ugg's conclusions with respect to this issue. I think the bureaucratic term is it was well ventilated at the public inquiry. The judge may have some...
Aren't you concerned that there was this 54-day delay in your department, slow walking for 54 days, a national security investigation? Doesn't that cause you concern?
I have a lot of confidence in the work done by CSIS and their national security partners. I regularly have briefings on warrants that I'm asked to sign.
CSIS went to the minister's chief of staff after no action was taken on day 13. After the minister's chief of staff was briefed, the minister continued to sit on that warrant for all the way to 54 days. Isn't the real reason that you're unwilling to undertake a departmental review is because you know that Bill Blair and his chief of staff put the partisan interests of the Liberal Party ahead of national security? Isn't that why you're so disinterested?
Absolutely not, Mr. Cooper. You can make up a series of suppositions and allegations here. You have...
Why not undertake a review?
Again, Mr. Cooper, these are amongst the most sensitive intelligence instruments that CSIS and the Public Safety Department have. I've never heard of an internal departmental review with respect to a specific warrant. The department provides me advice with respect to every warrant that I'm asked to sign. And again, I've taken note because I have no information myself.
It's really
Mr.
quite
Chair, Mr. Cooper asked a question.
Yeah.
Chair,
so
point of order.
Maybe the member from Matlock would allow me to answer the question.
Minister, we got a couple things happening here. So here's what I've got. I've got some interrupting, and I'm going to ask Mr. Cooper to afford the minister the opportunity to finish. I've got the minister taking an opportunity to himself provide some remarks, and then I've got a point of order from Mr. Turnbull, which I presume is in relation to what I've just said. And if that's the case, perhaps, Mr. Turnbull, we can just continue unless you feel the need to speak to this more specifically. All right. I paused the clock. Minister, I'm going to turn the floor back over to you, and I'm not even going to start the clock again for just a few seconds to be fair here. Allow you to answer Mr. Cooper's question. There's 2 minutes and 40 seconds remaining once I start the clock. Minister, the floor is yours.
So, Mr. Chair, thank you. And as I said, I have no personal insight into that particular warrant. I've taken note of public comments where Mr. Blair indicated that he signed that very quickly when he himself became aware of that warrant. I think Director Vigneault, the former director of CSIS, also noted. Sorry, Mr. Chair, is there a problem on your left?
Minister, I'll handle the ongoings. I'm going to permit you about 5.
Mr. Chair, with the greatest respect, it's my time.
First of all, Mr. Cooper, you don't have the floor. Second of all, I've paused the clock. Minister, in about 10 seconds, if you can wrap that up, please, and then I'm going to start the clock again to be fair to Mr. Cooper and allow him the opportunity to continue with his line of questioning. Go ahead, Minister.
Mr. Chair, thank you. I would just draw the committee's attention and Mr. Cooper's attention to public comments that I had noted from former Director Vigneault about his level of comfort in terms of the time that this has taken. But my only insight into that are public comments I've seen. But we look forward, of course, to Justice Huggs addressing this issue should she decide to do so.
Did Bill Blair, his chief of staff, or anyone in the minister's office tip off the former Ontario Liberal cabinet minister that he was a target of a CSIS warrant?
Again, I congratulate Mr. Cooper on your fishing expedition. I was Minister of Fisheries and Oceans myself. I understand that kind of activity. Again, Mr. Chair, have no insight into that. I would, of course, Mr. Cooper being...
I would note, Minister, that PMO officials were caught tipping off the member for Don Valley North, or at least he was tipped off, and the only persons briefed were officials within the PMO who had national security clearances. So it's happened before. So I put it to you again, how can you be certain that the former Liberal cabinet minister was not tipped off after a long 54-day delay when you haven't even bothered to undertake a review?
Again, there's no evidence, Mr. Cooper, of what you just alleged around PMO officials tipping off MPs.
Well, then just undertake a review. Why not clear the air and undertake a review? 54 days of delay to protect this Liberal kingpin.
Again, Mr. Cooper, those are your suppositions, and I get that you're doing this so you can have nice clips for social media. It doesn't mean that what you're saying is in fact accurate or real.
Well, it is accurate that there was an unprecedented 54-day delay involving a national security investigation that was slow-walked, that just happened to concern a former Liberal cabinet minister and key organizer and fundraiser for the Prime Minister. Just a coincidence?
What is a coincidence is that you keep making up things, for example, that somebody tipped off this particular individual.
I asked you, do you
Point of
have
order,
any information in
Chair.
that regard? Can you provide the assurance that that didn't
Mr.
happen?
Cooper, I've got a point of order. Ms. O'Connell.
Chair, out of respect of interpreters, it's incredibly difficult to have two people speaking at one time. The member opposite can ask his questions and then allow time for a response, or else we're not going to have interpretation and they'll lose their time altogether. So I think it would suit everyone to allow that respect here.
Colleagues, I would tend to agree with Ms. O'Connell here. We do have to be respectful of the fact that we've got interpreters trying to do work that serves us and the public interest. I have tried to be very fair in pausing the clock here in order to not allow points of order to take away. However, at some point, we're going to have to keep going. Otherwise, the minister is going to have to go back to Montreal and get himself a Schwartz sandwich for lunch. So, Cooper, the floor is yours for 20 seconds.
Minister, again, why not undertake a review?
Mr. Chair, the deputy informs me that there have never been reviews around the particular issue of a specific warrant. There's a well-known process by law in terms of how these warrants are handled. We think that Justice Hugg, who has ventilated this issue in public hearings and perhaps in-camera hearings, I don't know, would be in the best position to offer views on this. But again, Mr. Chair, I think it's important to note Mr. Cooper made a series of assertions about people potentially tipping off somebody who was the...
Minister, you're mischaracterizing what I said, Minister. You're mischaracterizing what I said. I asked you whether you could provide assurance that that didn't happen, and you have been unable to provide an answer in that regard.
Okay. Mr. Cooper, you will be respectful of the role that I have to play as the chair of this committee to keep order. I have on 3 occasions this morning paused the clock, which is not common practice, in order to allow you to continue a line of questioning when you yourself have interrupted the minister. Your time was up. I provided the minister with an opportunity to respond, which is why we fought tooth and nail to have him here in the first place. So the clock has run on your opening line of questioning, and I would ask that the next time I open up the microphone to ask you to be respectful of my role as chair, that you do that.
Mr. Berthold, you have 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Mr. Minister, for being here. A while ago, you said that the very existence of a mandate a mandate or of your office, if you were to reveal that, that would be against the law. Am I correct? I was told that I did not have the right to discuss the existence of a warrant that I had received. It goes to the court. You think it's illegal. I am not an expert. I'm not a legal expert. I don't know what goes on in the security services, but Mr. Rogers could give you clarifications. Question: the role of the government and that of security services, is it not to protect democracy and MPs against any threat of foreign interference? It is a responsibility that we have accepted, the first government that came up with measures in that direction. You are right. Who authorized the CST to give a briefing to Michael Chong, according to 12.1 of the act that came up with CSIS? Here again, you've asked a very technical question. I'll give you an answer, but I'll ask the director of the security services to add something. I was about to answer. I was answering your question, Mr. Berthold, but you want to refer it to Mr. Rogers. I was going to give you my answer and tell you, Mr. Minister, one moment, please. Ms. McConnell raised that issue already here. Mr. Minister, I'll give the floor back to Mr. Berthold, but if we get to a point where you have not had the opportunity to answer, I will give you the floor to complete your response. Inaudible. I was answering Mr. Berthold's question. I was just about to answer when he interrupted me. I'll give you a few seconds to complete your response. There are two types. In English, these are threat production measures. There are two ways that the security services could inform someone of an existing threat when their personal safety is concerned or for national security service purposes. I do not approve decisions taken by our intelligence services to meet someone in a context that doesn't consider 4 specific criteria as being high risk. I do not know if Mr. Chung's case was assessed as a high-risk threat reduction measure. I did not approve that measure. I was asked in some cases to approve, but that was when the action meets the criteria of high risk. My question was 8 seconds. Let me just mention that, Mr. Chair. Mr. Berthold, I give the minister time to respond. I don't want to remove his time for you.
We have the time to have a good, solid discussion. So I'm not going to penalize us for that. Mr. Berthold, parole à vous.
Merci. À votre connaissance, est-ce que le Premier ministre...
Thank you. Could the Prime Minister be prosecuted if he divulges secret information? Could the Prime Minister be prosecuted if he reveals information that has been classified as secret of his own volition? Once again, that's a legal question that an attorney or a legal expert can answer. I'm not responsible for criminal prosecution services in Canada. Question. So you do not master laws concerning secrecy. You don't know whether or not information could be revealed. That's very important for a minister. The Prime Minister, Mr. LeBlanc, said that Conservative MPs are included in a list of MPs who are threatened or could be the subject of foreign interference. In your opinion, did the Prime Minister break the law by saying that candidates or MPs of a certain party alone were included in that list, even though he doesn't want to give the names of members of other parties who could be on that list? Would not be a purely political use of classified information? No. That is your characterization for partisan purposes. You can do so if you want, Mr. Beto. But from a legal perspective, Mr. LeBlanc, if you are looking for a specific legal opinion, I request you hire a criminal lawyer that is specialized in such investigations and prosecutions. Unfortunately, that is not my case. The good news, Mr. Chair, is that the director of the intelligence services is here with us. The director of the of CSIS is here. So Mr. Berthold claims that he wants very technical answers to his questions. The good news is that Mr. Rogers is here. So, Mr. Chair, he could answer those questions. It's not technical. It's very important to know that the Minister of Public Safety is aware of the laws that govern security and classified information, but cannot answer the question. So let me end by mentioning something. There's a party leader who obtained authorization recently. Is the head of the Bloc Québécois on the 5th of November, Mr. Yves-François Blanchet, responding to a question in French. Now that you have the security clearance, have you read the NCCOP report? And if so, what are your impressions? The Bloc leader responded in English, and that was strange. The question was...
But do not rejoice yourself. It's not about what I will tell you, about what I will not tell you. You saw I will tell even less after than before. Donc, pour que les gens puissent le savoir, ce mardi matin...
This Tuesday morning, don't rejoice of what I will telling you, but what I'll not tell you. So I'll give you more information than before. So the leader is confirming that the fact that he obtained the security attestation prevents him from giving information to Canadians, information that the Prime Minister himself decides to reveal to Canadians. Don't you find that irrespectful and unjustifiable, Mr. LeBlanc? I find that unfortunate that you are mocking Mr. Blanchet's response in English. That is unfortunate. Mr. Blanchet had the courage that your leader did not have, Mr. Berthold, to request that security clearance. He acted in a responsible way. I think that as a leader of a political party, Mr. Berthold, I'll give the minister a few more seconds and then we'll end with your time. Mr. Berthold, if you are disturbed by your leader's behavior, attacking the Bloc Québécois leader is not worthy. So I think you should focus on your own leader, who is the one responsible. I am confident in Mr. Blanchet's decision.
You know, maybe I'm going back to my teaching days here, but it seems to make sense to me that if we stop arguing over the amount of time that each person gets to respond, forcing me to respond to points of orders, etc., that we would be okay. So trust that if the minister has a longer response, I'm not seeing that as some attempt on his part to filibuster. I'm not taking that time away from an opposition member. I'm letting the clock run. The clerk can verify this. She's right here beside me. If you have a concern about the way the clock has been running, then for all colleagues, time yourselves. I've been saying that for the last 6 months. Okay, so please trust that I am allowing for a fair exchange of questions and answers. I am not allowing a response or the length of a question to take away from the quality.